Hello, it's Cisvolk. Time to enjoy card making with me. Are you ready for some binge watching in card making? This video will be a very long one. There will be loads of tips and tricks and I will show you 10 cards that I made using all the 10 different A05 stencils. So take a good seat and enjoy and learn. Here is the stack of cards that I made and that I'm going to show you in detail at the end of the video. I used these pretty dies with leaves and flowers on all the cards. And there are the 10 slimline stencils from the A05 series. Alina sells many different stencils in her shop, so this is just one of them. They all have a leaf or flower pattern. I use several text stamps, but this one is new and I use it on most of the cards. Then I decorate the cards with these water drops. They are flat on the bottom and round on the top. And there are 4 different sizes in the jar. Then I use these brushes for many of the stencils. I attached labels to them with the names of the inks. I also added a silver brush that I already had, but you can see how few different colors of ink I used. First, here come all the inked stencils. Hopefully it will give you some color inspiration. For most of the stencils I only used 2 shades of color. And I also tried to draw attention to certain parts of the stencil by blending the ink a little darker on different parts than on others. All the cards I made today are in the slimline format. For me that means the size of the width of an A4 sheet and folded at 10.5 centimeters. And what remains I cut off. And I use those pieces of paper to cut out my die cuts. I trimmed the panel so that it leaves about half a centimeter of space on all sides of the card. And I stick the inked panel on with double-sided tape. If you've watched more videos of mine, you know that this is a very convenient way to stick your panel to the card. For one of the cards I tried something out with embossing powder using this new Happy Birthday stamp. And I thought this was such a surprising effect that I wanted to share with you. Over this transparent heat embossed text I stamp again with this banner stamp. I used water-based red ink, a darker color on the sides and a lighter shade in the middle. Then I stamped the stamp over this and notice there is a residue of ink left on the stamp. This I also stamp. It's obviously not very sharp. But when I stamp it black again over it, then you see a beautiful shadow of the text. The black text falls just short of the red text, so you see a shadow. I found this surprisingly beautiful. And I think this technique is worth experimenting some more. Second stamping technique with embossing and you have 2 sentiments in one go. I used one of the text banners on this card. Here I'm using this same new Happy Birthday text stamp set again. And I'm taking this one with the leaf in the text. I also find these stamps stick really well. Before I start stamping, I make my paper grease-free with talcum powder. I put that in this folded panty stocking. I stamp with Versamark ink that is suitable for embossing. And I heat emboss with silver embossing powder from ALINACRAFT. I catch any excess powder with these 2 sheets of paper. Excess grains I gently tap away, and if they are still not gone, then I blow them away or I use a small tool to wipe them away. Here you can see that I blow for a moment. Maybe I didn't use enough talcum powder. Only when all the loose grains are gone, then I do heat it. Then I have a nice tip for you. I am making a frame here that I will later glue around the text. For the ink blending, I use the same colors of ink as the stencil. In this case, yellow and teal blue. These colors together make a nice shade of green. Don't forget to clean your work area in between, otherwise you will get green right on the corner, while you only want green where yellow and blue merge. Now I take 2 dies that fit the frame of the text. You see, I have already die cut the silver embossed text with a large frame die. I put in a smaller size and I cut this out of the colored piece of paper. This frame I'm going to use. You see, it fits exactly with the background, which is blended with the same 2 colors of ink. But before I glue the frame with the text on it, I am going to do something else with it. I stamp Versamark ink on the frame. This is a small Versamark ink pad. Then I use transparent embossing powder from ALINACRAFT and I need my tweezers to lift this out. Well, it's a challenge to emboss this in one go, but it is possible. I use an old empty tape roll for this. I make sure I only lift the edges of the frame and don't touch the embossing powder. This way you can emboss conveniently without the whole thing flying off. Halfway though, I do flip it over so I can get the top better. I've glued the frame on the text panel and now stick dimension foam behind it. I've cut out a whole pile of leaves that I want to use on the card. Usually I don't know exactly how I'm going to lay it out beforehand, so I usually start by laying it out randomly and gradually see if it's going to be fun or not. I put the leaves on the corners and the needle leaves in between. These thin leaves we are going to ink blend, but since they are rather fragile and bend easily, I put them back in the shape they came out of after die cutting. With the blending brushes you can now perfectly color the leaves. I want a contrasting color that still fits, so I took light blue and dark blue. I purposely left the tops of the leaves a little lighter in color, so there seems to be some depth to them. And also the extra dark blue color in the middle gives some more contrast. I didn't do that with the other 3 blue leaves, and you can see the difference. For the leaf of the pine tree, at least that's what it looks to me, perfect to use for Christmas cards too by the way, but that aside, for this leaf I used the same 2 colors as for the background. I think this one is a bit too faded, but one blue leaf is a bit boring again, so I compromise. I decide to blend them all with yellow and teal blue, and on top of that I add some light blue for contrast. So now I have to do that with all the leaves. Finally, I add some yellow to the edges of the leaves. I hope this gave you some tips on blending in small fragile shapes and building up color. Now for the gluing of all those little fragile shapes, I decide to strengthen each shape with an extra die. So basically 2 layers on top of each other. I glue with a multi-medium matte glue, and here I put little dots of glue on the die. I press them down and put a clear block on top of it to let it dry firmly. This is dry in just a few seconds. Another way is to put some glue on your table. In my case this is a silicone craft sheet, which is easy to clean. I dip the bottom die in the glue that is on the craft sheet. The excess glue I also dab off on the craft sheet. The third way that I also use is with a glue brush. I brush the glue directly from the pot. Now I have to get the shape exactly right. Slightly offset is also quite nice, but for this card I want them straight. Although I will do this again for another card. Finally, I glue all the leaves onto the card. Any excess glue I dab off with a tissue. you see nothing of it anymore. Then I glue the text on and cut off the overhanging parts. And even those overhanging parts you can still use. I glued them next to the text frame to fill up the empty spot. For the finishing touch, I add some more of these water drops, both on the text banner and on some of the leaves. I stick water drops using the same multi-medium glue. Then there is the envelope. To make it match, you can of course use not only the stencil, but why not also use the die cut shapes? Optimal usage of your products and very economical of course. I am now using the yellow and light blue color directly, but I am still ink blending a little bit with the teal color over it. And so you see, I'm working with the two dies on the left and right side of the envelope alternating. Be careful to clean your work mat in between, otherwise you will get ink on the back of the envelope. Also the back of the envelope I just decorated. I am very satisfied with this card. A lot of work, but so much fun. Okay, for the next card I worked only with brown ink combined with gold embossing powder. And for that I took this stamp. I cut it out by hand. There are dies for it, but I don't own them yet. I put the dies down where I roughly want to glue them on later. I want the text in the middle. Now it's almost impossible to glue them back in the same place, so I use a piece of low-tech tape, masking tape in this case, to pick up the dies completely. I press the tape firmly and pull all the die cuts loose. Now I can apply glue to the figures all at once and stick them in the right place on the card. You could also use the press and seal for this technique, but since it is not available in all countries, masking tape or washi tape works well too. I leave the tape on for a while until the glue has dried well enough. The text I stick raised with foam blocks. I decide not to add extra gems or sequins to keep it plain and also suitable for a men's card. I'm not done giving tips yet, and that's about combining and gluing the die-cutted figures. When you die cut this flower, there's a little hole in the petal, which means you can see through it. I'll just show it with a white flower. See, you can look through the holes and see the card with the colors underneath. But if your little flower is already colored and there's also a lot of color underneath, you might not want to be able to see through it. Or you might want the hole to be white. That's why I made this one. Here I cut out the die cut, but then filled up the holes again. Now if you put a colored flower on top of that and put this flower on the card, you can't see through it, and you have a nicer flower. It doesn't fall away as much in the background, you see. I'm going to show you how to do that. You just take tape and cut very small strips from it. This piece is even too big. You leave the cutout flower in the die. And then you stick pieces of tape on the small shapes while it's still in the die. I do this best with tweezers. It's really easiest if you tape them down before you take the die out of its mold. You can also do it the other way around, because as you can see, this little piece stays in. You can take the flower out of the die, stick the tape under the holes, and then stick the little shape back where the tape is now. Like I'm doing now with the last piece that didn't want to stick. And this is what it looks like when you glue a colored open die cut to a closed white die cut. It gives a different effect than when you glue two dies with holes in them straight on top of each other or slightly offset. Look, when you glue two on top of each other that are shifted about 2 mm, then it looks like a shadow. And of course, it can also be in different colors besides white. You can also stack the petals. Stick two of the same sizes twist it together, then it looks like the flower has more petals. Or you die cut the 3 different sizes and stack them on top of each other. Then you suddenly have a completely different flower. You can glue the whole flower flat or just in the middle, so you can add dimension to it. And look what an effect it gives when you put a water drop in the middle. I stamped this text stamp twice. Once on black paper with white embossing powder, that's this one from ALINACRAFT. And once more on white paper with black ink and transparent embossing powder, and that's this one. It's from the new stamp set. The text happy, cut out and raised on top. Cool effect, right? I don't stick the petals completely flat on the card. I only put glue on the bottom stack so that the petal is still a bit loose from the paper. I colored the white foam tape black at the edges with a black permanent marker, so that the foam does not stand out under the black paper. I finished this card with some black sequins, on top of which I also stick some water drops. I find that this glues the most easily with glossy accents. Then I quickly show you how I used one part of the stencil to decorate the envelope, although you can of course do this on a card as well. I ink blend first with yellow ink, leaving the center of the flower white. Over that I very lightly ink with orange ink, but then blend it from the center of the flower outward. And then only in the center of the flower with red ink. To watch the edges, I blend lighter and lighter so that it blends nicely into the white of the envelope. I'm running out of yellow ink, which makes it a little too light for my liking. Therefore I go over it again with another color of yellow. The mini blending brushes from Alina are not a problem. They work very well. Hopefully this will help you to get better ink blending yourself and to use your stencils well. Then I have another tip for you that I used on this next card. As you can see, the stencil is quite busy and the border quite bare. By drawing lines with a thick black permanent marker next to the paper, you can easily draw a dark border, which makes the panel stand out more. I also make the text stand out by die cutting a frame in the same size in black and sticking it diagonally underneath. I did the same with the dies, making sure the shadows always point outward. Next, let's see how I made my matching envelope. I took a leaf from the stencil and inked it with yellow, blue and red, and then I traced the pattern with a thin fine liner. Super cute, right? The back flap of this envelope I ink blended entirely. Again with yellow, blue and orange, and maybe a very small amount of red. Now that I've shared all my tips and part of the 10 cards with you, I'm going to show you all the cards and envelopes. I made this card first. On the envelope I glued the 2 strips that I had left over when I cut the panel to size. I used the A05 stencil for the card background and of course the flower dies. I used the dewdrops for the hearts. The text hello is from this stamp set. It has matching dies for the butterflies, but not for the hello. I cut those out myself. The hugs and kisses text comes from this stamp set. I embossed it with white embossing powder. The black text I embossed with black memento ink and transparent embossing powder. I did the ink blending with the colors yellow, red and blue, and I think also a little teal. Nice, isn't it, how the colors flow into each other? Okay, card number 2 was made with this stencil. And here, by the way, I also glued the 2 cropped strips to the envelope. I used the flowers and the leaves with this stencil. As you can see, I also glued the inserts under these flowers and glued the flowers only in the middle. For the colors I used yellow for the whole background and then blue on the parts where you see the green now. I colored the flowers with yellow and orange. Then the next card. This stencil I combined with these two dies from the set. Some left white, others blue, red or a combination of red and blue. I left the dies partially filled. Again, the same text and the water drops scattered over the leaves. Colored with dark blue and light red and dark red. Send this video to a friend if you want to share the inspiration, or save it in a playlist. Then this orange card. I have already shown it in more detail. Here you can see the stencil and the dies again. I mounted these dies twice and shifted the bottom flower 2 mm below the upper flower. 2 medium sizes and 1 small size. And I ink blended them with yellow, orange and red. Now for the green card, I used this stencil for the base of the card. I colored with yellow, blue and teal. And I used these two dies and glued them alternating. As an extra die, I used this nesting frame die. Once the big one for the card and later twice for the frame. The envelope was ink blended using all leftovers from the die cutting. I can enjoy it so much when my envelopes match my cards so well. Then from green we switched to orange. I think this orange card looks very happy and colorful. For this card I reversed the stencil. I used these two leaf dies. Here you see the stamp that is also in the new Happy Birthday stamp set. And I also die cut it with a nesting frame die. And I ink blended the whole panel with yellow. Then part orange and red just here in the middle. A few loose leaves I first inked all yellow and then with some blue applied over them. The gloss from the transparent heat embossing and the water drops make the card a lot nicer. For this card I showed the stamping technique. And actually I only worked with blue and red here. However, be careful not to blend the blue and red over each other. It won't be as pretty. I used a leaf and the largest and smallest size flower. Here again the Happy Birthday stamp and the banner stamp. Then here is a gold card. On both sides of the envelope I used a negative of a die cut as a stencil. And here is the stencil. To ink blend I used mostly brown ink and a very small amount of yellow. The Happy Birthday stamp is again from the same set and I embossed it with gold embossing powder. The leaves I ink blended only on the bottom. And for this I used these two leaf dies. Well, here you see the completed card. And I have more to come. Then I also made this green and bronze colored card. I also ink blended the envelope. I think it turned out very well myself. So to ink blend, I used green and brown ink and I made sure to alternate brown dark spots. I used these three dies. I heat embossed the smallest die twice with bronze embossing powder from ALINACRAFT. In the jar it looks brown, but once embossed it gives a beautiful shiny warm color. This is the stamp I used. And also the text is heat embossed with the same bronze embossing powder. For the envelope, I used again the negative dies to create my own stencil. And for the flap of the envelope, I used the A05 stencil again. Because of the shininess and creativity in this card, this is the card I like best. What's your favorite? And then this last card. You've seen a little bit of that one too. I also used this nesting frame die. I made a black shadow die that shifted 2 mm. And I stamped this text with black ink. And I made the panel border black with a thick permanent marker. I used the stencil in two ways. Once as a flower with fine liner, bordered on the front, and once the flap completely ink blended in the same colors, yellow, green and orange, with a very little extra red. The black extra dies that give the shadow effect combine perfect with the black permanent markers I used for the panel and for the tracing of the stencil. Now here's another look at the 10 slimline cards and envelopes using the A05 stencils from ALINACRAFT store, in combination with the leaves and flowers die set. If you are interested in any of the products I used for making these cards, you can find all the links for them in the description below this video. Just click on the word more to expand the text and you will find them. Also in the description box you will find links to other videos where I used Alina stencils. If you are watching this video through ALINACRAFT's channel, please also subscribe to my own channel, Cisvolk. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. It has been a very long and informative video with loads of tips and tricks. I hope you learned new things and are inspired to combine your dies with some ink blending too. Have a nice day and I will see you next time. Bye bye!